Cheers, guys. Epix 911, welcome to the Thursday, March 9th, 2017 edition of VR News. Let's start with regular viewer Brendan Curley. So in yesterday's comment section, he linked for us a game called Dark Legion VR. And he said, if you like Arizona Sunshine, it's not zombies, it's more of a science fiction take, but very much a polished game like Arizona Sunshine. Now, I'll warn you, it is in early access. It's for the HTC Vive. And my thing has been, and I've been pretty consistent on this, look, unless you're sick of FPS games, if it's a good example of one that brings something to the table unique or is polished, if the price is right, it's still a decent experience for me, as sick as I am of the genre. But the price point is important, and this one is kind of right on that border. It's regularly $21.99 US, 15% off, so it's going for $18.69 right now. But check that out. It's called Dark Legion VR. A very flashy looking sci-fi FPS that's in early access on HTC. Another update, the beta patch, the 2.3 patch for Elite Dangerous on Obsidian Ant's channel. He's got a video dealing with that patch. Now, if you're not aware who Obsidian Ant is, he's a Elite Dangerous YouTuber. He's got a lot of great videos and just a very distinctive voice. In fact, the first time I saw the guy, I guess I had a different picture of him. It's amazing how powerful voices can be. But he tests it, and something interesting came up out of that patch. So this is the famous multi-crew patch. So you and buddies can play in the same spaceship. One navigates maybe, one is on gun. And that's the issue, or where the issue is for a lot of people with this patch. And it's that the gunnery position isn't first person. The targeting is third person. Now, personally, I don't like that. I wish it was first person. But we got to keep in mind it is a beta. And like anything in beta, it's still subject to change, fixing, tweaking, editing, dropping, you name it. So I wouldn't be worried too much at this point. But hopefully, alongside it comes a first-person targeting option for the gunner. Now, how typical of me on this frickin' channel, talk about something, and no sooner do I mention it than it starts appearing everywhere. Or, of course, I missed it. Well, Duck Hunt. That's all I'm going to say. And I'm going to put the link up for, I realized I forgot that yesterday in yesterday's video. I'm going to add that. Also going to give you guys these links. So the first one is a game, and many of you guys pointed these out to me, Dick Wilde, which is coming to all three big VR platforms. It's basically you, a hunter in the swamps of Mississippi. So not just ducks, alligators, that type of stuff as well. There's also another VR duck hunting game called Duck Hunter. Now, this is a more realistic version of Duck Hunt, but it's still duck hunting and it's still in VR, which is exactly what I was talking about yesterday. And a third one mentioned is from viewer Jawa64Iffy, who linked a game called Duck Season. Now, this one most certainly is a tribute to Duck Hunt directly. I mean, watch the video. It basically pays tribute to the game. Very cool looking. And I didn't link it. I haven't been able to find it again. But there is an actual Duck Hunt as we know it, VR. Unofficial, but it exists. A few weeks ago, I talked about Mission International Space Station, or Mission ISS, a program that allows you to look at the Earth from the vantage point of the International Space Station. Had a few of you ask me about that, how to get those views. So this is the link down below. You can check it out. I haven't delved into it enough to even come close to remembering how the hell to do that. I'll check it out myself. But in the meantime, there's the link. It's free. So you got nothing to lose just trying it and see if you like it, if you're interested in space stuff. All right, this first non-gaming story, Korix. They are a developer. They claim to be the first company to have a native 120 hertz game on the PlayStation VR. Now, we know that the PlayStation 4 relies very heavily on adding extra frames, right? Reprojection. That's kind of a staple because of its lack of GPU and CPU horsepower. It's natural that it would do that. Now, I happen to think it pulls it off really well. What would be the difference here? Well, it would probably be a bit more fluid, but for most people, not a perceptible difference, right? But with that said, what makes this so special? Well, it's pretty obvious when you watch the video. The main reason they can pull this off is it's not terribly complex. And that's the whole key, is not just optimize code, that goes without saying. Using the hardware features correctly would be a second thing, but also reducing your overhead, your texture complexity, your number of polygons making up a scene, etc. And these guys clearly skimped in that department to pull this off. But still, hey, to me, it's really a marketing slant, and I can't fault them for wanting to get buzz for their game out there, something that sets them apart, because visually it doesn't look that unique. Why not say you're the first 120 hertz native game company? Doesn't hurt anybody, but I don't think it's all that spectacular. Not at the end of the day. Of acclaim, that is. Oh, God. Second day in a row, guys, for schlock worthiness. They're at it again. Or rather, they've not stopped really being at it, but at least in the public, we've been given a frickin' break from Zenimax versus Oculus until today. We get word that John Carmack is suing Zenimax for $22.5 million US in their ongoing battle, claiming the $150 million that they purchased id Software for is the balance remaining on that purchase. In other words, they still owe him 22.5. Now, Zenimax is refusing to pay that, and they are citing, of course, the case. Now, I don't recall there directly being something that they could defense that. They do point in their statement, and it's a pretty lengthy statement, his taking of the code, but I don't know if that's enough to justify withholding, as that's a whole separate contract. But it'll be interesting to see the end result of that. Do I want to see it quickly? Would it be a focus for me in my life? Hell no. I'll be totally happy with many weeks or months of break in between now and the next time I report a Zenimax versus Oculus story. But there you go. 22.5 million lawsuit, Carmack versus Zenimax. Next story, this one from UploadVR. 7 things that they can't wait to stick the Vive Tracker onto. And a couple of these are tongue-in-cheek, especially the last one, and we'll get to that. First one is instruments, so musical instruments. And we talked yesterday in some really good comment discussion, guys, on exactly what I brought up. The whole volume, the quantity versus quality argument for the trackers. You know, when Alvin said, yeah, there's probably going to be 100 plus. And that had some really good discussion yesterday, which was awesome. More on that in a sec. So instruments, cups, phones and tablets, toy lightsabers, friends, pets. Although, I'm not sure if I like the pet one. I don't think a cat, my cat or hell, any other cat that I've ever known would appreciate a tracker Velcro to their fur. The last one, clearly a bit of a burn, a shot at Oculus. In other words, wanting to stick a tracker to Oculus. Obviously a shot fired at their recent tracking woes. Next story, Aimfire has, that's the company, they have an application called Camarada, which allows you to stack 2 smartphones and create a very rudimentary 3D stereoscopic video. Now, the idea behind this is it's a hell of a lot cheaper than using expensive Hollywood equipment, although I can't see anybody with, professional requirements for this using it. It definitely has some limitations, but the enthusiast, the hobbyist, sure, why not? Now, what you got to do basically is you stack one smartphone over top of another, and the one that's on the bottom or the closest to what you're filming is slid more to the right underneath. So you've got both cameras with view. You record. The footage then gets transmitted to the other device, and the software kicks in, does all the processing, and gives you essentially 180 degree. This isn't obviously 360 degree. And the way you film it is kind of a side-to-side wobble. That's where that 180 degrees comes in. So you can look at something directly and kind of to the sides as well a little bit. So you end up with 180 degrees, but for just a couple of smartphones, and obviously you could use a spouse or partner smartphone. You wouldn't need to purchase a second. So yeah, hobbyist, enthusiast, that's personally all I really see this being used for. Unless you guys could think of something else, that's all I got. All right, this next story, why smells are so difficult to simulate for VR. Now, we've talked about smells multiple times. Michael Abrash, when he was talking about the key things for the future of virtual reality, the senses he touched on were sight, hearing, and touch. No mention of smell. Smell has come up at least 3 or 4 times on this news show. It was also pointed out in UploadVR's article that 3 smell Kickstarters actually failed to do anything, really. So they were not successes. And it's interesting because the article goes into why that could be. Now, I don't think anybody's arguing the point that smell isn't a powerful sense. I mean, for me personally, it's right up there with hearing a song, like hearing. I can hear a song, and I'm sure that's like that for a lot of you guys, and you're instantly transported back to your life at the time of that song. Well, I also get that with smells, and there's a few smells. I remember there's this one smell, and to this day I can still kind of evoke it, of my grandma's house. She was an awesome cook, doing lots of great Dutch baking, and I still remember that smell. And as soon as you smell that smell just like it, boom, transport it back. So smell is powerful. But the problem, as the article points out, is it's not frickin' consistent. And I love this experiment. Now, let me just set the groundwork for the experiment quickly. Once upon a time, I myself was a courier driver. It was one of 3 jobs I was holding with a newborn baby, a wife, a very young and pregnant, just having given birth wife, and university courses. Don't know how the hell I did it, but that's the magic of youth, right? You don't realize the challenges. You just assume it's all normal. You're naive. Could I do that now? Probably not. I'd be scared crapless. But I was a courier driver, one of those 3 jobs. And my unenviable route for some of you, was in the seediest part of downtown Vancouver. The high homeless portion, the high drug use and alcohol portion, where almost every alley outside a pub or a restaurant or a liquor store smells like urine. And I remember grabbing parcels, carefully stepping over used needles, and that smell, so frickin' distinct. Anybody who's walked around big metro cities, unless it's Singapore, has probably smelt that smell. They did an experiment where they had participants walking into a virtual reality kitchen with, you guessed it, the smell of urine. And what was interesting, some did smell it and were able to say that it added immensely to the immersion because there was a certain scenario in that kitchen. We're not going to get into the gross details, right? But there were others who misidentified the urine smell, thinking, and here's just a list of what came up as possibilities: old fish, garbage, the bad breath of a killer, the body of a victim, etc. So that's the danger with smell. It's not consistent, and it can have the opposite desired effect. Imagine them intending to produce a smell that is supposed to put fear into you, yet you have some nostalgic association with a super happy moment in your life. You're going to go into a death scenario literally grinning ear to ear, which is probably not the desired effect, right? So yeah, interesting discussion on VR and smell. I do wonder over the next few decades how that one unfolds. Next up, Jason Rubin officially offering an explanation on the tracking issues and how they came about. And this is interesting. I'm going to read a few of his comments to UploadVR when they asked him that. Here was his response. We made a mistake. We are part of Facebook. Facebook's slogan for a long time was move fast and break stuff. We believe we are in the move fast and break stuff mode when it comes to VR. We're pushing as fast as we can to get as much functionality into our systems as we can so that when open standards come and we start to slow down, we have to support a lot more things. We have a foundation to do the things we need to do. And he says, look, we've learned a valuable lesson. Do not move too fast and don't break too much stuff. So basically kind of hinting that it was the slogan's fault. I know he's not saying that directly. He's being somewhat accountable as well, but interesting. That's the first real public admission and explanation on what possibly led to that little mishap with the tracking getting broken. All right, guys, that is it for the news on this Thursday. Tomorrow, Game and Friday. As always, cheers, guys.